Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. And good morning, everyone. And thank you for joining us for the Maryland Insurance Administration's annual Property and Casualty Industry Meeting. I'm Kathleen Birrane, and I serve as the Maryland Insurance Commissioner. The purpose of today's meeting is to discuss 2023 legislation, regulations, operational issues, and any other matters of concern to the industry or to stakeholders. We really want to thank everyone who reached out in advance with questions or agenda recommendations. Joining us today from the administration are Robert Birrane, Associate Commissioner of Property and Casualty, Mary Quay, Associate Commissioner of Market Regulation and Professional Licensing, Joy Hatchette, Associate Commissioner of Consumer Education and Advocacy, Joe Spiacchio, our Communications Director, Mary Jo Rogers, the CEAU Supervisor, Robin Lombo, Investigative Specialist in CEAU's Rapid Response Program, Jamie Sexton, the Director of Health Insurance and Regulatory Affairs, and Phil Pearson, who is the Deputy Principal Counsel. So this public industry meeting is being recorded, and the recording will be posted on the MIA's website. We have a pretty robust agenda, but as time and technology allow, we do want to hear from you. So if you would like to speak during the industry comments portion of the agenda, please just let us know using the chat feature, and we'll bring you over from the audience to make comments. I'm going to do this time the same thing that I did in the Life and Health meeting the other day, which is after, for example, Robert gives his updates, I'll invite people to go ahead and ask questions at that time. So that way you don't have to hold your questions as we move from unit to unit. I will also say that to ensure excellent sound quality and video quality throughout the meeting, we ask that you please stay on mute with your video off unless you're speaking once you have been moved over to the panel. And before we start today's formal agenda, there was one item that I wanted to address more generally, and that is the MOVE-IT data breach that has impacted so many industries globally, as well as several federal agencies and state agencies outside of Maryland. And that, those industries include the insurance industry. So the most important thing is that the MIA's CIO and CISO have confirmed that MIA systems have not been impacted. We will continue to monitor, and we have proactively implemented the recommended mitigation steps. But our systems are secure, and there's no indication that any of our information has been stolen or leaked. As for those of you that are not as familiar with it, there are criminals, CLOP, that have exploited a vulnerability in Progressive Software's MOVE-IT file transfer app, which is used by thousands of organizations around the world for file transfer. A number of organizations whose supply chains use the MOVE-IT app have suffered a data breach as a result, with customer data being stolen or held for ransom. This has hit a broad range of industries, lots of banks, many insurance entities. To date, the notices that we have received in Maryland, there have been several. There are a lot of consumers that are impacted, but they have been thus far limited to the life industry, including long-term care. That does not necessarily mean that's where it's going to end. Mary will talk a little bit more about the notice issue with regard to cyber events, and as she talks about the roll-in of the next phase of the cybersecurity law that was enacted last year. But it's just really important that we get notices of breaches and potential breaches very, very quickly so that we can advise consumers. And we will have a consumer alert going out probably today, Monday at latest, that lets consumers broadly know that this event has occurred, and if they have questions, to contact their agent or contact their carrier. But it's also equally important, and I expect a bulletin will go out making sure that carriers let us know that if they have experienced some sort of a data breach or an exposure of information as a result of that. So with that, let me now go ahead and turn it over to Robert Birrane to get us started on our formal agenda. Thank you, Robert.
Thank you, Kathleen. Good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be back in front of you all, albeit on the screen instead of face to face. And for those of you that may be attending one of these annual sessions that we have for the first time, again, my name is Robert Birrane. I'm the Associate Commissioner for Property and Casualty Division here at the MIA. We'll start with a brief overview of two bills that came out of the last legislative session. The first, which is in the space of private passenger automobile insurance, motor vehicle liability insurance, is the House Bill 128, the Enhanced Underinsured Motorist Coverage bill. That did get signed into law and effectively becomes effective in terms of practical impact July 1st of next year. So that's 1/1/24. And the significance of the bill is that the EUIM option will become for new business policies effective July 1/24 and after the default option. And so it will be incumbent on the industry to make the necessary changes in their systems to accommodate that change in the law. We are currently preparing a new uninsured motorist coverage option selection form that we will be publishing a draft of for comments quite soon. Shouldn't be too long after the 4th of July holiday that we will have the form up on our website. A notice will go out. We will keep that up for a 2-week comment period. We'll see what comments we receive. We'll try to incorporate any necessary changes, edits, etc., that make the product better. And then our objective is to finalize the form and publish it for all writers of PPA to have access to by the end of July. That will leave 11 months, full 11 months for our licensees to, implement their internal systems, programming changes, et cetera, to make sure that come July 1st, 24, new business quotes, policies, et cetera, will use the new form and will be ready to, to go at that time. The second bill that I want to talk about briefly was Senate Bill 725. This was the culmination of a couple of years of effort to update what we loosely have called the anti-rebating statute that has been around for a long time. And the thrust of the new bill here, which becomes effective actually about a week from now, July 1st of this year, is that licensees in both the property and casualty and the L&H space will be able to offer, I say licensees, insurers in those spaces will be able to offer what we call value-added products and services, either with or without making a filing with the administration. Under the current law, a filing is basically required. With the new law being implemented, that filing process won't be required. And the key litmus test for these value-added services and products is that they have to be directly tied to the type of insurance that the policy is providing. So if you're providing a homeowner's policy and you want to offer something along the way of a value-added product that might have to do with a moisture or leak detector or some kind of a glass breakage alarm, any of those kinds of things that tie directly to loss mitigation, education, et cetera, will be able to be offered without the need to make a separate filing. And again, that'll be effective July 1. The other one other item that's not on the printed agenda, but a inquiry that we received since making the announcement of the date and time for this session. A producer wrote in, and I'm sorry that I don't know who that was, but the question was around workers' compensation coverage, in particular, general contractors who utilize subcontractors, and the subcontractor may in fact be a sole proprietor, and that there seem to be some premium or premium audit issues around that a particular set of circumstances. And so this isn't really anything new. Sole proprietors can opt out of the workers' compensation system. The Workers' Compensation Commission provides a form specifically for that purpose that the sole proprietor must use. And the producer was questioning if in the space of a premium audit, a sole proprietor working for, subcontractor working for a general contractor, and the general contractor is still getting charged premium. If you run across that situation, that is something to interact with us about, so that we can we can open a file and investigate whether the workers' comp carrier is charging premium properly. So we have, we don't regulate workers' comp insurance claims here at the Insurance Administration for the most part, but we of course do have regulatory authority in the space of workers' compensation premium. And so if any of your, as producers, if any of your clients face that problem, go on our website and fill out a complaint form or send me an email, and we'll get it into the system that way. But we're happy to look into those situations when they arise. And with that, Kathleen, you want to open it up for questions on my segment?
Sure, absolutely. So is there anyone who just raise your hand or put something in the chat if you have questions for Robert on any of the issues that he's addressed or other issues? We'll have time at the very end also for folks to ask questions. So I see, hold on. So that is Nancy. You have a question. I'm not a host this time, so I can't bring you over. So Corey or Sue, can you bring Nancy over? And then one of you can make me a co-host so I can do it moving forward. Sue or Joe? There we go. Okay, or not. So I tell you what, I apologize that
I just got introduced. So hi. Hi everyone. I just want to clarify. So this is about a workman's comp situation where the general contractor hires a sub who is a sole proprietor who can elect not to carry workman's comp. And during the audit period by the workman's comp carrier at the end of the year for the general contractor, they're picking up the payroll for the workman's comp exposure for the sub, saying that they have to charge a premium for them because they feel like they would be legally responsible or whatever. In those situations, you're saying that the producer can have them file a complaint with you or to reach out to you directly.
Yeah, I mean, we'd want to get a complaint from the insured, the general contractor, but the producer can certainly facilitate that. And easiest way is to use the website, but we're not opposed to getting an email. So, and we get complaints like that from time to time. Sometimes it is a question of the subcontractor has given the general a what appears to be a valid opt-out sole proprietor form, and it turns out they never filed with the Workers' Comp Commission, or the subcontractor claims to be a sole proprietor, but turns out actually has employees, in which case there is exposure. So we do those kinds of investigations when they crop up, and we're happy to do that if that situation rises for anybody.
All right, thanks so much. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Nancy. You can just, yeah. All right, any other questions? I don't see any other hands up. Okay, so then we will move on. So thank you, Robert. And next up, we have Mary Quay, who will provide an update on cybersecurity.
Good morning, everyone. I see a few familiar names in the participants list, although I'm probably better known to people on the life and health side. I have been in this position for almost a year and a half, but over a year now. And part of my responsibilities include the cybersecurity reporting. I share part of that with the financial reg folks, Lynn Beckner's team. But I am going to talk about the reporting for cybersecurity events and the changes that are the new compliance standards that take effect October 1st of this year. So Title 33 of the insurance article took effect last year, and the requirement to report cybersecurity events that meet certain criteria took effect last October 1st. The MIA issued Bulletin 2213 to explain the requirements and how to report a cybersecurity event. There is a reporting form on our website for any cybersecurity events that must be reported under the law. I want to emphasize that the website form is the proper way to make a report to the MIA, and that the report is due no later than 3 business days after the carrier has determined that a cybersecurity event has occurred. We discovered in the last 2 weeks that some carriers were waiting to report or unsure about using the form because they felt they didn't have enough information yet. And you do need to report timely, and you do need to use the form, and information can be supplemented or added or updated later. We have a process to evaluate the reports and determine a schedule for routine updates. There may be circumstances in which we need a discussion the day of the report to learn more and set an update schedule. Obviously, if something is ongoing and severely compromises your operations, we're going to want much more frequent updates than if it is something where it has been resolved and was relatively small scale. Otherwise, the market conduct unit for the line of insurance will send written correspondence through email to request additional information and set a schedule for updates. However, the carrier has a continuing obligation to provide updates and supplements to the original information, and this obligation does not depend on requests by the MIA to receive the information. This year, the next phase of the law takes effect on October 1st. Section 33-103 requires a written information security program. This implementation is delayed until October 1st, 2024 for small carriers that are below a specified threshold. I'm not going to walk through all of the requirements for the information security program, but you should read them carefully and verify that your programs comply, including providing for ongoing assessments. The administration is working on engaging expert assistance in reviewing the plans. The effective date means that the programs must be in place. The MIA may require you to produce a copy of the program as part of an update following your report of a cybersecurity event. It may also be required as part of a market conduct or a financial exam. On or before April 15th of 2024, a certification of compliance with 33103 must be filed with the MIA. There is an exemption for carriers that are not domiciled in Maryland, but are domiciled in another jurisdiction that has adopted a substantially similar law, is subject to that law, and is required to file, and it does file, a certification of compliance with its domestic regulator. The MIA will be sending a bulletin with information on the filing of certificates of compliance. And please let us know if you have questions you think that the bulletin should address, or if you have questions after the bulletin is issued. And Kathleen, if you want to open it up for questions right now.
That's great. Thank you, Mary, very much. Anybody have any questions for Mary on the cybersecurity topic or other questions? Let's see. We do have, so yes, so hold on, let me, two folks who want to chat. So I'm bringing both of them over. Friend. Okay, Stephanie Hall. I'm desperately clicking away at promote to panelists. So let's see if that seems like that's should be working. So you should both be over. Yeah. So Stephanie, do you want to just turn your mic and camera on? I see you in the panelist spot, but I can't see you yet.
Can you hear me?
Okay, and there's TB, yeah, okay.
Yes.
Hi.
So I have two questions. One is, when is there going to be a template for the certification available?
Can you introduce yourself?
I'm sorry. Yeah,
Sorry.
sure. My name's Tammy Bohm. I'm from Radiant Guarantee. We're a monoline mortgage guarantee insurer. We are 50 state licensed. We comply with the New York regs. Pennsylvania recently, our domestic state recently introduced regulations that'll be implemented early next year. But until they are implemented, we understand that foreign insurers have to comply in Maryland if they don't have a similar regulation in their state. So I'm looking to find out when the certification template will be available, how the certification is going to occur, and how it's determined which states have substantially similar regulations.
The template will be in the bulletin, and there will be an email address for submission, and that will be in the bulletin. At least all of that is our current plan in the draft bulletin that we are circulating internally. And so I anticipate it will be in the final bulletin, but all of the instructions will be there. And it may take some time to go through all of the review levels, but within a few months, we should have a bulletin out well in time, well in advance of April of next year.
Oh, so
I would also mention two things. One, we will have a, sort of a jot form option for people to actually go in and fill it out online for the notice. But also a good rule of thumb is that if a state has passed the NAIC's model, or the NAIC has indicated that what they have enacted is substantially similar in that it includes some form of a certification requirement to their domestic regulator, that would be in a circumstance in which you would not have to file with us. So for example, you have indicated that you operate in New York and you operate in Pennsylvania. So you have just told us that you are active in states that do require certifications and that have laws that are substantially similar. So we will help clarify that, in the bulletin, but the goal is not to make, everybody do it multiple places. There are, the issue is states that do not regulate this at all. And it doesn't have to be regulation. It has to be, it may be that they've adopted the model as a statutory law, even if they haven't enacted separate regulations. Does that help you?
Yes, that does. But if you're not domiciled in New York, but you comply with New York, you still have to do the filing in Maryland.
Correct. It has to be your state of domicile.
Right.
Where
Okay.
are you
Thank
guys
you.
domiciled?
Pennsylvania. I think last week or 2 weeks ago, they put out the rule will be in place effective in April of 2024. I don't recall if there's an actual certification. I'm sure that there is if they're following the NAIC model. Thank you.
You're welcome. So Stephanie has just put a note in the chat that she couldn't get her microphone to work, but her question was similar to the one that was just asked about when the bulletin would be out. So anybody else that had any questions for Mary on this topic or any other topic? I see one more hand. Hold on, let me bring. Great. Lauren Graziano.
Yes, thank you so much. And I love that it says I've been promoted to panelist. I love that. Lauren Graziano, I'm counsel for Medical Mutual. Just a quick question. This should be easy. I know you mentioned there was a bulletin issued on new cybersecurity event reporting standards. I just missed the bulletin number. If you wouldn't mind repeating that.
Mary.
Sorry, my mouse wouldn't move for a moment. It is bulletin number 2213.
Thank you so
I
much.
can add that to the chat if it would help.
That was it.
Thank you, Lauren. Okay, I don't see any more hands up to ask questions of Mary. So with that, I am then going to move on to the next item in our agenda today, which is to focus on hurricane season. So let me invite Joy Hatchette and her team, and Mary Quay will remain on to talk to us about hurricane season preparation. Thank you, Joy and Mary.
Thank you, Commissioner. And good morning to everyone. I think probably most of you have heard our discussion about hurricane preparation. And while we have not had a major event for a few years, we have had some minor events. And as you all know, the Commissioner and the entire MIA, we start preparing for these events well in advance, just to make sure that if in fact anything happens and we need to respond, we are ready. And the key thing that I stress every single year is in the very beginning of the year, we ask every carrier to provide us with their contacts. And we ask all of the carriers to make sure that those contacts are updated. And I'm sure it's not any of you that are on the line with us today, but every single year, I reach out to someone on the contact list to find out that they have retired. And then we end up running around trying to find the appropriate person. So once again, I ask, if someone retires that is your contact, or if they move on to a different position, please make sure that you provide us with the updated contact information. The other thing that I really want to make sure that I stress with folks is always monitor our website when you either see an event coming or hear some possibility of a major event. We put all types of really important information on our website. You can always sign up for the bulletins because that's how we push out the information about whether there are any specific things we're requiring of the carriers. And Mary's going to speak to the data ask that we make in a few minutes. But by signing up for those bulletins and constantly monitoring our website when there is an event, you are making certain that you have situational awareness, which is important for you as companies. And more importantly, it's important for your customers. The other thing that we really want to sort of make some of you aware of, I think some of you may be aware of this. We know that before COVID, we used to go out and if there was a disaster, we would do in-person disaster recovery centers. One of the things that the commissioner has put in place is that we now have virtual disaster centers, so that instead of a consumer having to travel to a particular location, they can actually get assistance with their claims and their questions virtually. And we found that the consumers really enjoy that opportunity and think it works best for them. Now, for those of you that have been around for a while, you recall that in some of our major events, we would actually have the carriers join us at our in-person disaster centers. With the capabilities that we have with our virtual disaster centers, we are thinking that if it is necessary, we may invite some of you to be a part of that virtual disaster center. So stay tuned, because that opportunity also will allow you to better serve your customers. And the last thing that I want to spend a couple of minutes talking about is, as always, participation in the rapid response program. And for those of you that don't know, that's unlike our formal P&C complaint process that Robert oversees. It is, in sunny days, carriers can opt out of participating in rapid response. If there is a disaster, there is no opting out. All carriers are expected to participate and assist their customers promptly. So you will be working with Mary Jo, the director of the Rapid Response Program, Cheryl Coons, and Robin, to get those consumer cases, responses, and claims and explanations promptly. And once again, that's where having accurate information as to the contacts, that's where it is essential. And one of the things also that we found over the years is that having those communication lines open when it's necessary in a disaster helps all of us. I know after the flooding in Ellicott City, one of the things that we were able to do on the auto side was we were able to move vehicles to a central location at a school, which ended up saving consumers, but also carriers, storage fees. So that type of thing and open communication and having all of that information updated is critical. And where I want to leave things is we get in Maryland, sometimes events happen up and down the East Coast, and you may be responding to multiple states. We get that, but we don't want your third string. We want the folks that you send to handle claims to be able to handle Maryland claims. We want the same type of courtesy and response time that you would want your family and your dear friends to receive. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mary so she can talk a little bit about the data collection.
Thank you, Joy. And market regulation encompasses several areas, including market conduct, which you're all familiar with. And while the market conduct units will seek to support Joy's area in their efforts, the piece that we would really use in this instance would be our market data analysis unit. And what that unit does is they can send out surveys. And they send out surveys sometimes to a large segment of industry, and we target that as appropriate. And I want to emphasize that when we send these with a deadline, that is a real deadline, and that this is data that we need. And so I hope that you will all cooperate with our survey requests. If there are any problems, be proactive in reaching out. Make sure that, as Joy said, all of your contact information is up to date so that these are not going to dead email boxes. To the degree that you can designate an email box that is not a specific individual's so that various people can check it and it does not become inaccessible, that is encouraged. And I am happy to answer any questions about that process, but it is pretty straightforward.
See if anybody has their hands up. I know there's a question from Nancy in the chat that whether we could post the link identifying the carrier contacts so the carriers can make sure that that they're up to date with their contact.
So it's 1,600 carriers, so we're not going to post that. If they want to reach out to Joyce Peach, joyce.peach@maryland.gov, she can assist them with that effort, but it would be impossible for us to put a link to all of the contacts in something that everyone would have access to.
So let me just use that as an opportunity to just say that we are, and I don't know if he's still on the call with us, but a lot of you know Corey Boone. And also know that Corey was promoted last year to a special deputy position to focus on our own soup tech efforts. And he's really been doing transformative things internally at the MIA. That has really been his focus, is how do we get the MIA into the 21st century where the use of technology is concerned. And, we've taken some low hanging fruit. That's why, for example, you are able to go online and, submit notices of, breaches. And you're going to see more and more and more and more of that. He's also working very closely with our friends in our communications department to automate exactly this type of thing, right? So you're going to see our orders automated and searchable. You're going to see more and more opportunities to be able to get information in easy ways. Like right now, Joy is correct. I mean, basically what we have is the equivalent of a spreadsheet that we really can't share with you in that way. But the goal is to be able to have more and more information that's searchable. And at the same time, the other thing that, Corey has been spending an enormous amount of time doing is really developing and acquiring software that helps us remove these manual processes and, makes our work more precise and more accurate. So lots of things dealing with premium tax analysis and our audit process, lots of things dealing with, the calculation of assessments. So those are all really important things that are happening behind the scenes, and where we've made a lot of progress this last year. So I'm sorry that the answer right now, Nancy, is not really, but I'm hopeful that by next year, the answer will be, yeah, absolutely. Here's the link. Here's where you go to check your company information periodically to make sure that it's accurate, which will then mean for us to be able to say, well, you guys, all you have to do is really click a button. So, make sure you click that button, periodically, that your information is actually accurate.
Thank you, Joy. I'm getting text messages as the meeting goes on, so that's why they show up in the chat feature. So thanks, Joy. I really appreciate it.
So Mary or Joy, anything else on hurricane season and disaster stuff? One thing that I will just mention, that the virtual disaster center is something that we all work really hard on, and the MIA is particularly proud of. It's been very effective and it's been very helpful. And because it's so easy to set up, and Joy and Craig and their teams have this like down to a science at this point in terms of being able to move it up really quickly. It's easy to reach out in circumstances where, you might only have 5 or 6 people that need it, but those 5 or 6 people really need it. And we can do it very quickly. And we don't have to send people away because they didn't have the right information, right? They can just go and get what they need and come back online. But we're very excited for this 2.0 version, where we can bring in other agencies and we can bring in carriers, so that we do have this one-stop shop where that consumer can really address all of their emergent needs following a disaster. That doesn't mean that we won't still participate in in-person disaster centers, because Joy's team, which I will tell you, literally they never sleep. So Joy's team does that as well. And we're excited about this. So I think that's the end of our formal agenda. So I think where we will go now is I'll ask people to raise their hands if you have specific questions of me or any members of the team, or if there are any issues that you wanted us to discuss that we haven't gotten to. And Nancy, let me know if you still want me to talk about the NAIC and H committee.
Yes, my members would love that. Thank you. But after anyone else has any other questions, we would appreciate it. Thank you.
So I don't see any other hands. So Nancy, why don't you stay on the screen, and I'll give you a little bit of a rundown, and then you can ask your questions and see if there's anything that you feel like I've left out that folks want to know, or if they're sending you questions. So I think probably, I'm just going to guess that the two things that folks are probably the most interested in where it comes to H committee and the NEIC is the AI bulletin and the privacy model. So with respect to the privacy model, as you know, there was a draft that was put out, which I think to some carriers felt like literally the end of the universe as we know it. And so there were really concerns about, some of the positions taken. But the goal was always to put a stake in the ground and then have robust conversation following that. And that's what happened. The representatives of the drafting group have met with over 30 carriers or trade associations in individual calls to really walk through the details of the provisions in the draft model. And that draft model is, for those that aren't aware, is intended to take the existing NEIC privacy models and bring them together into one modernized model, which would operate across all industries, like the health, P&C, et cetera. And so that's been a really rigorous process going through that. There was a fly-in to Kansas City at the beginning of this month, where people spent 2 days really digging through section by section by section. And I am hopeful from the feedback that I've gotten from my fellow regulators and the members of my team, including Dan Dorsey, who is our principal counsel, who is our primary representative to that working group at the MIA, that a lot of really good progress has been made. And I will thank you all, just as I thanked the AICP representatives from industry yesterday for your candid feedback. It's really important to have that engagement with the drafting groups, because people don't know your industry, this industry, in operational format the way that you do. So it is very, very helpful to sit down in a sort of like a non-confrontational way and walk through the practical realities of trying to operationalize something that's suggested as a make it, and I'm exaggerating a little bit, but one of the sections would suggest that information would somehow be of an application would somehow be disappeared after 60 days. And that's impractical. And we know why that's impractical. And we know why there are reasons that doesn't work. So it's been really helpful from an educational standpoint as well. I have to reach out to Katie to see when the next draft is going to be made available, but it'll circulate internally before it circulates externally. But I feel pretty hopeful that a lot of progress has been made, and our goal is to try to get it passed this year and have it voted out in plenary in December. So I'm still hopeful that can occur. All right. Now, the other big item that we are looking at actually voting out at plenary in December is a model bulletin on AI governance and oversight within the insurance industry. So for those that are aware, the NEIC determined last November that we really do need to articulate a regulatory position with regard to the usage of AI. And that's a very broad term, but AI, really decisional systems that are consumer facing. So a portion of the use cases for AI technologies within the insurance industry, we need to articulate what the expectations are of US regulators. And we need to do that for lots of reasons. One, because we need to do it, because there should be an articulation of what those expectations are to guide industry. But it's also really important that we do that in light of the amount of work that's being done in Europe, the adoption of IOPA, of their AI regulation, and what that has meant in terms of the movement and the push at the federal level to look at law and regulation. And it's important that we have an articulation out there if we want to be able to point to that as a reason why anything that Congress does more generally is not applied to our to U.S. Insurance companies, which are regulated at the state level and should remain regulated at the state level. So the bulletin, as I've said before, is a work in progress. Its intent is to lay out regulatory expectations at from a non-prescriptive, more principles-based approach. We will lay out the authority that we already have in order to regulate this modality, because that's how most of us as regulators see it. While it is unique and different, it is essentially, AI decisional systems are mechanisms that are being used by carriers to facilitate or make decisions. The decisions that carriers make are already regulated. So there are standards that are applied by departments of insurance. The clearest, easiest is in the rating laws, but there are unfair trade practice laws. There are laws that govern, how the standards and that apply to the decisions that are made by insurance companies. And therefore, we believe that this particular methodology doesn't necessarily warrant at this point in time, a new model law or a new construct. Rather, it's guidance as to how those existing principles are applied to this methodology. And so what you will likely see is a document that is very focused on governance, very focused on risk management principles, and an expectation of kind of what that governance and what that risk management is going to look like, proportionate to the company's actual utilization of AI techniques, and whether it is grown in-house or whether it is acquired from a third party. So we are very much we're very focused. The bulletin working groups have now all converged. So we have a comprehensive document. That's my activity the rest of this afternoon and tomorrow is to work through that. I expect to turn it back to the drafting group by the end of the day next Monday. Our hope and expectation is that we will then be in a position by the end of the week to circulate it among our NAIC members for discussion at the Commissioners Conference in Colorado Springs. We will, during the Commissioners Conference, have a discussion about the bulletin. I know that it's been frustrating for people. I know that people have been like, when can we see it? When can we comment? I've asked people to trust me and give me some grace around this, because the effort that is being put in on the front end with a diverse drafting group of people across the spectrum in their views and beliefs is what I think will well serve us and get us across the finish line, because we really have done that that hard work of keeping things bipartisan and down the center up front. So our hope is that when we get to the conference, we will have it in the right place. That during the regulator only H committee meeting that will happen during the conference, we will vote that out, because we've held this at the committee level. So this will vote out of H committee for exposure. My expectation is that the exposure period will be for after Labor Day, but I currently have the working agenda for H committee meeting, which is on Sunday, Sunday, August 13th in Seattle. That during that meeting, we will devote an hour to comments from interested parties on the bulletin. The expectation is that we'll then turn that, we'll get the last of written comments by right after Labor Day. We will spend September incorporating what's appropriate to incorporate, and then get it back out again. We will have an interim H committee meeting to vote out a new exposure draft. Hopefully that'll happen in early October. And then we'll have another probably shorter comment period, another H committee comment meeting that'll be virtual. And, if we've hit it right, it is something that should be out by the, and voted out in plenary. So that's the procedural process for where we are with the model bulletin. And I, happy to chat about any of the other stuff that H committee is doing, cyber, anything, soup tech, or any of the other work that I'm working on, like climate, et cetera. So anything else, Nancy? I know you're reading.
I know, I was just checking my text because people text things, but they were just saying thank you for having you provide an update. So no thanks. Let me just check my emails to see if anything came in. Sorry.
All right.
This double checking is fun. No, those are obviously I wasn't supposed to be on this call today, which we were all laughing because I swore I wasn't going to be here today, but the weather interfered, right? So anyway, yes, I appreciate it. It's always good for us to get a general sense of the timeline for exposure, and I will share that with our NAIC internal group as well. I have not received anything from my members, so thank you so much for giving us at least a sense of where we are on this, and thank you for all the hard work that you've put into it. I remember you were, I guess it was just a couple months ago, you were talking about just trying to come up with definitions that people would agree to. So you've obviously made a lot of progress. So thank you.
Well, you're very, very welcome. I know there's a lot of anxiety about it. So but, I think the specificity hopefully helps. I just want to make two additional comments before we close up, and I give you 30 minutes of your life back. And that is, there are two things that we would ask industry to continue to be vigilant about. And your vigilance and notice to us has been extremely helpful. First is with respect to bogus certificates of insurance. So, the pandemic obviously hit a lot of businesses hard. And one of the things that we have sadly seen is an uptick in subcontractors that are making up their own certificates of insurance. Now, we often, that gets caught when the general contractor reaches out to the carrier or to the agency that purportedly issued the certificate, and that's how our fraud unit gets noticed. But just staying on top of that and making sure that your agencies are on top of that as well. Sadly, we have seen people that have taken old certificates and essentially recreated them to indicate that they have coverage that they don't actually have. So we've issued several orders on that recently, and something obviously we have to be very, very concerned about for a lot of reasons, including the consumer protection angle. And the second piece, and incidentally, that we've seen that with commercial auto, we've seen it with workers' comp, we've seen it with general liability coverages. And then the other thing I would ask is that for carriers to continue to be vigilant in letting us know when they see evidence that there is an entity, usually in the construction trades, that are really doing the work of a public adjuster. So we've tried very hard, and we've issued a number of orders over the past 2 years that keep people in the right swim lane and make sure that those people that are purporting to provide insurance advice and to address insurance claims with respect to consumers who are looking, whether it's for a new roof or something else because of storm damage, that those individuals are properly licensed to do what they are proposing to do, and that the public adjuster contracts are also in line. So you all as an industry have been instrumental in helping us to identify where there are issues and concerns, and we just ask you to continue to do that, because it benefits everybody in making sure that the claims adjusting process and the public adjusting process is something that's undertaken by people who have been educated and licensed to do that work. So thank you for your partnership in that so far, and please continue. So with that, I don't see anybody else's hands up. I don't see anything else. Anything more from anybody on the MIA team? Okay, well, in that event, thank you everyone very much. We appreciate your participation. We're here if you have any questions or comments, you know how to get us. And you get 27 minutes of your day back. Thank you. Bye.